Good evening, everyone, and welcome into Beyond the Box Score, our weekly show where we break down all the latest football news from the high school, college, and professional ranks here on Pulaski Citizen Live. I'm your host, Mark Mize, joined once again by my co-host, Chandler Harmon. Chandler, great to have you back as always.
Great to be here, Mark, and a lot drier than I was at the game, I'll tell you that.
Yes, so this was such an interesting week of Friday night football. As you know, you had Richland starting at 6 p.m. versus White House Heritage. They ended up having, about an hour and a half delay?
Right at it.
Yeah. And then our Giles County at Lawrence County game, which of course is the Cowbell game, started at 7:45 due to some lightning in the area as well. And so once the games got underway, field conditions were surprisingly good considering what the night held for a lot of teams in Middle Tennessee.
Absolutely. And, it also changed the momentum a little bit in the games with White House Heritage's coach saying that it actually helped his team to get refocused with having such a delay.
Yeah. And so, Richland, of course, ends up with a monumental victory there, winning 21-10 over a 3A, very strong 3A White House Heritage team. The Bobcats take an early lead, but end up falling late, 42-28 to the Lawrence County Wildcats there in that Cowbell game. And so, some mixed emotions here in the county, but a couple really good football games on Friday night.
Absolutely. And, at the end of the day, win or loss, all that matters is you went out there, you played good football, and it's something to build on for both teams. Giles County played a very tough Lawrence County team.
Absolutely. And Lawrence County, probably the best Lawrence County team I've seen in the last 14 years when I've been covering, so really impressed from what they had. And for Giles County, injuries too obviously played a factor. So I think for both teams, it's about getting healthy. And now, this week, starting region play. So it'll be Richland Raiders at Huntland for the first region game for the Raiders there. And then Giles County will travel to Watertown for their first region matchup as well. But should be a great week of football. And you'll hear a little bit more about that in just a minute here on Beyond the Box Score.
Gas Department of Pulaski is here to help you save money. Natural gas is safe, efficient, and cost-effective. It's up to 50 to 60% less expensive than electricity for home heating. Plus, it's clean and efficient, so you can feel good about your choice. Call us today for service or visit our website to learn more. Make the switch to natural gas and start saving today.
And welcome back in here on Beyond the Box Score. I'm your host, Mark Mize, and joined for this Giles County versus Lawrence County segment is Dylan Manus. He's a teacher at Lawrence County High School, broadcasted some games with us here on Pulaski Citizen Live before as well. So friend of the program. Dylan, great to have you once again.
Mark, thanks for having me. Looking forward to this.
Absolutely. So it was the Cowbell game in Lawrenceburg. It doesn't get much bigger than that. I said to some of my friends, we were kind of texting, we have a group chat, for everyone who's covering sports around here on Friday nights. And I said, it feels like Lawrence County is really up for this game. I don't know what that's going to mean overall, but you could tell that they were excited about the opportunity. And while Giles came out and took a 13-point lead early, Lawrence County really, came back. They were fired up, and it felt like they had something to prove out there, Dylan.
Yeah, shades of Summertown from 2 weeks earlier. I really thought the idea that came to my mind when I started watching Lawrence County on offense was they looked kind of bottled up. They didn't look very comfortable. And, of course, right there on the third, fourth offensive play of the game, looked like a wounded duck. The quarterback, Logan Coleman, the way it came out of his hands didn't look very comfortable. And I got the news from our head coach, Coach Barnett, that he didn't like apparently how one of the balls was just felt in his hands. I think Logan went over to the sideline and had some words for some of the ball boys. And Coach told him, hey, if you don't like how it feels, you got to tell them. I think they tweaked a little bit, with what they did, but yeah, that's not the way you want to start. You spot Giles County 13 points there, and but again, second time they've done this and able to have the fortitude and the the maturity to still come back, make it a ball game. I think they were within one score at halftime, and then the second half it completely flipped the other way in Lawrence County's favor.
Definitely. And it's funny, Garrick Barnett, the head coach for Lawrence County, told me that exact same story, that the ball boy had gotten the wrong ball in on the play. And you saw two poor passes from Clayton, correct?
Yes.
On the first drive of the game, he throws that interception to Trace Ward, and that really gets Giles County started. And then on that next possession, you have Lawrence County, has 3 really good defensive plays. But then Xavier Randolph finds Dallas Buckner for the 7-yard passing touchdown. Giles County gets a big stop the next drive too, and then comes right down the field and is able to score again. But a key note there is Giles County's starting running back. It's tough to say whether Bridges is their first or second string running back because Pearson Collier, their other, tandem running back in the backfield, hasn't been able to play yet this season. And so whether he's your first stringer or second stringer, now that he's out and Collier's out, you end up on your third string running back, Xavier Hanna, which I felt he ran the ball pretty well considering that he's actually a starting wide receiver. They bring him in, he ends up averaging 6 yards per carry.
Was that the big back?
It was.
They kept feeding that. I kept thinking, man, this is Giles County's bread and butter out there. I didn't know there was third string. He's playing like a first stringer. Hard to bring down, constantly going forward. I mean, when you're getting 4 yards a carry, whatever it was each time, why put the ball in the air? I mean, they ran the ball very well, pretty consistently over the course of the game.
And that was really an interesting note for me, and something that I talked to both coaches about after the game was in the first half, Giles County was able to burn Lawrence County several times in the pass game on those little out routes, basically where it was a really quick go route, and you'd find Jazz Bentley out in front of the defense there. In the second half, Lawrence County was really able to tap that down, got some good back pass breakups there too. And so I think once they were able to cut out that part of the offense and Giles was injured at running back, suddenly Lawrence County's defense made it really hard on Giles in the second half.
Yeah, and we talked about this, Coach Barnett and I, just the other day. He's my neighbor on my wing, so we get to talk a little bit. It's always fun to have a coach on your wing and get some perspective. But he talked about that, how both this game and the Summertown game, the defense really rose to the challenge. They shut out Summertown in the second half 2 weeks prior, and then for this they gave up just 1 score to Giles County. But you made a good point, Mark. Early on, it gets to third, fourth down, you see a stingy Lawrence County defense, even in a short field, but Giles County able to convert. Not so much the case in the second half, where there were a few pass breakups. Lawrence County's defense was able to hold, particularly in the fourth quarter. That really impressed me because Giles County still had the chance to make a game of it, even down 2 scores late. So it was an impressive performance.
It was. And so really, I think the point that changed the game was just how dynamic the Lawrence County offense was. And that's not something we really had been used to seeing in years past. Clayton ends up with 6 touchdowns by the end of the night, 3 passing, 3 rushing. Zacchaeus Everly was probably the hardest man on either team to bring down all night long, had 124 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns. I think that between the read option and those quick passes, some bubble screens, and just getting the ball out quickly, Lawrence County has created an offense that is really dynamic and hard to stop.
We as in the Lawrence County faithful have been waiting for this kind of performance for a long time. I've thought the talent has been available. Haven't always run this kind of offense. It's only the second year to me in this offense. It's my understanding it's Coach Barnett's offense. He brought this in from when he was Kaufman's head coach at the middle school level, and they really haven't missed a beat, it seems. Logan came in about the third game or so last year, took over the starting spot, and showed a lot of promise last year. His ability to scramble, to make something out of nothing. We saw that last night, of course. He's got a lot of moxie, a lot of poise, and that early turnover didn't affect him. But the fact that he is a threat to run, I think, causes some problems for defenses. Causes you to hesitate just a little bit.
Yeah, and he had 242 passing yards, I think 140 rushing yards. Probably the best dual threat quarterback I can remember Giles County playing against in the last couple of years. And so really impressive from Lawrence. And the point really that I think is you get from the night is Giles has kind of dominated this rivalry over the last decade.
Oh, absolutely.
So for the first time on the field since 2015, Lawrence County takes the cowbell and it's head back to Lawrenceburg now. Just what was the feeling around the program and the community this week after Lawrence County finally got one back?
Yeah, you're cautious. At least for me, kids and staff would ask me because they know I follow football and I really enjoy it. And I've been keeping an eye on this rivalry really going back to 2009. Giles County coming off that state championship, and the next year, I told my kids this, how I was on that same field at Lawrence County in 2010 when Giles County went over and Lawrence County blew them out of the water. And that's the last time that happened until last Friday night. And I think it's, that big monkey off your back, it's been 10 years. I know for the seniors, it's meant a lot. I got 3 senior football players right now. And of course, Giles County, you got that border rivalry there with Lawrenceburg, Pulaski, and the cowbell is special. We sell cowbells throughout the week, and I think they had 800 more cowbells to give out during pregame the other night. I myself did not grab one. I don't know where I'd put it, but have too much sports memorabilia as it is. But you could just tell around the program it was exciting. The fact that we were 2-0 against our in-county rivals, but it seemed that things were clicking offensively. And I remember thinking, we played Giles County to within one score last year at Sam Davis last year. Might we see something similar this time, maybe even to be on the positive side of the scoreboard? And it certainly proved to be that case.
So Lawrence County wins the cowbell for the first time in a decade with a 42-28 win in Lawrenceburg over Giles. Turning it back to Giles, though, before we take a quick timeout, I think as they get healthier, they still had some really, really good things going their way. They kind of showed early on that they could ground and pound a little bit. Xavier Randolph and the offense through 3 games have still yet to commit a single turnover this year.
Wow.
And so, the fact that they're keeping penalties down, they're not committing turnovers. You have to feel like once this offense gets healthy and gets back to their 2 starting running backs, I really feel like they're going to bring it back together, and this is a team that could go pretty far this year.
Yeah, I mean, Coach O'Connor's been there and done that. He knows how this works. He's always going to have a good offense, usually very strong at quarterback. Like you said, ground and pound in the backfield with the tailbacks. I think Giles County has a lot of weapons. I think if a few things go differently the other night, Giles County's the victor again.
Yeah.
So they have a lot of promise, a lot of upswing.
But I think the biggest thing, I know that obviously it's a tough pill to swallow for Giles County fans because, they'd really dominated this rivalry. But, man, just what such a good football game for the second straight year. And so everyone who got to go out, I think, if you take away, because obviously as an unbiased, I'm trying to be a media person and be unbiased in the moment. I'm just enjoying a good football game. And I think that when you step back and look back at the game, I think that everyone can say that it was a really great night of football.
Absolutely, Mark.
Absolutely. And so we're going to go ahead and hear from Coach David O'Connor, who had a chance to talk to us after the game. And then we'll be back in just a moment here on Beyond the Box Score. So, Coach, tough loss, but what did you see initially from the guys tonight?
I thought we started well early. I think we tell the 2 halves, really. I think we did well offensively the first half. I think we got behind and got in our feelings a little bit on defense, and then ended up not making plays when we needed to make plays. Of course, now that being said, we got some guys out, but that should be another opportunity for someone else. So the next man up mentality that says that next guy's still got to make the play.
And it looked like Bridges, one of your top 2 running backs, along with Collier, went out in the second quarter, I believe. Then Hannah came in. Is that correct?
That's correct. Bridges went out in the first quarter. Hannah came in after that, and then he started cramping some as well. So we were in a bad situation, but again, that's part of the team mentality. Team is not about one. Team's about we got to pick it up, move on. So, and I think we will. I think the number one thing you do from a loss is make sure you don't waste it. You got to learn from it. So that's what we got to do.
And Hannah looked pretty good, but do you think Bridges and Collier will be back soon?
Unsure at this point. We'll probably have to go next week without them because, and then we'll get a week off. So hopefully that will give them an opportunity to come back. But I promise you this: Watertown's after watching this game is going to be ready to play.
And finally, defensively, you had a couple big stops early on, including the pick that led to the first touchdown. Just what are some of the positives and what are some of the things you want to improve on after seeing tonight's game?
We got to do a better job of picking up blitzers. And getting away from man coverage. We didn't do a very good job of necessarily getting away from man coverage. And then when we did, you got to make those catches, contested catches, because those guys are playing right in their hip pocket. You still got to make those contested catches. Defensively, we got to do a better job of maintaining the gap security and then getting off, making plays. We let their quarterback really eat us up big time second half on QB runs.
And finally, what do you think this does to fuel the guys going forward after, a loss that obviously is going to leave a bad taste in their mouth?
Well, I mean, hopefully that bad taste will help them fuel them. They look when they look back at it and they see the film, they'll see that there's a lot of opportunities for us to win this game, or we lost.
Awesome. And we're back here on Beyond the Box Score. You just heard from head coach David O'Connor of the Giles County Bobcats. They're 1-2 on the season, but this week they start region play at Watertown. So just initially, I know this was your first chance to see Giles County this year, Dylan, but I think it's really helpful for a lot of teams to have these non-region games early in the year to kind of get you ready for this region gauntlet that you're going to go through during the second half, because you kind of learn a little bit about yourself and some of those younger players.
You do. It's a chance to build chemistry before you get into district play. Not that you're aiming for a loss, but you can abide maybe a few hiccups before that district record can be impacted, and you hope to get a few players in. So it's a good opportunity.
It is. And honestly, for Giles County, I think it means even more because they have so many sophomores and juniors on this team. This is not a very senior laden team for the second straight year for the Bobcats. So they have a lot of guys returning, but not a lot of guys who are 2 or 3 year starters with a couple exceptions. And so I think that the offense has looked really, really good. They end up putting up 34 points against Page in the opener, had a great game versus Henry County, a 5A Henry County team, winning there. And then, of course, played 4A Lawrence County, a Lawrence County team that's 3-0 for the first time in a few years, and really looks like they're going to be a local centralized power here in 4A as well. And so after playing some higher level competition, I think for Giles County right now, it's about finding a way to win on the road, and then you get your bye week and more time to get those guys healthy.
Yeah, absolutely, Mark. And you get those tough early contests, which I think can only improve you. You get hit in the mouth, adversity hits you. How do you respond? And certainly, Giles County has a talented offense to put up points, putting above 30 on Page there, and playing teams in that 5A level, 4A level, I think is very helpful overall.
And as you heard from O'Connor a moment ago, he does not expect initially to have either Pearson Collier or David Bridges this week, hoping to have them back after the bye week there. So probably means we're going to see more of Xavier Hanna, but once again, averaging more than 6 yards per carry. In the first time I'd ever seen him carry the football, he is one of the best receivers on this team. And, initially we didn't see much from the really talented freshman Braylon Bledsoe. I would imagine that's because since Collier's out on defense as well, I think Bledsoe's starting at safety in place of Collier, so may want to keep him just on one side of the ball since he's one of the younger guys there, but just a supreme talent. We're going to see a lot more good things from him during his Giles County career. And so I think for the Bobcats, now that you have a full week to prepare knowing you don't have either of your top 2 running backs, I think that helps the game plan a lot because now you can get Hannah as, hey, you're only playing running back in practice this week. Hey, we're going to prepare for knowing that we don't have either of our 2 best guys. I think having a week to prepare for injuries rather than having them happen in the first quarter like last week, I think that does a lot for your strategy.
It gives you a script to go by. Ahead at this position what you're going to be doing all week. I think your mental preparation is impacted by that. Of course, naturally, your physical preparation as you're in that one position consistently now, and you're the guy.
Yeah. And so once again, for the Bobcats, I think it's a lot of what we've already seen so far this year, committing no turnovers. They've been a really, really disciplined team. And I think this defense is just going to get better once they get healthier. And so I know that there have been some concerns in the community from a few folks I've talked to, but I think we've always known that David O'Connor teams get better as the year goes on. And 2, I think they've got the talent. And so, this week, I think it's all about playing disciplined football at Watertown. Watertown's a team that keeps getting a little bit better and a little bit better in that region every year. They may be starting to think about getting past the first round of the playoffs these days now with another team that returns some quality players. And so should be a great one. Chandler Harmon will have the coverage for you there as he's headed to Watertown for Giles County's region opener this week. But we'll be back in just a moment with our final segment here on Beyond the Box Score.
For a new job, let M&M Staffing be your guide. With over 20 years of experience, we know how to connect great people with great opportunities. We work with over 80 companies, so we're sure to find the perfect job for you. Our team is dedicated to helping you succeed, and our high customer satisfaction rate proves it. Ready to get started? Visit us at mnmstaffing.net or give us a call today at 931-347-4255.
This is Chandler Harmon with the Pulaski Citizen, and joining me today is Assistant Principal Mr. Hanna. How are you doing, sir?
Doing well. How are you?
Doing good. So what's going on this week in the school?
Of course, we're all getting ready for our big ACT day. That's coming up on September the 30th, so we're doing a lot of preparation for that. ACT is real big. That day that we have the ACT, our seniors will take the ACT, our juniors will take the ASVAB, so that's really big, and then our freshmen and sophomores will take a practice ACT. So by the time the freshmen and sophomores get to be a senior, they've been exposed to the ACT several times, whether it be practice or whatever. A lot of kids kind of panic sometimes when a 4-hour test is set in front of them,
Yes, sir.
So the more that they can practice and be familiar with it, the better off they're going to do. And of course, ACT is really big. Of course, you hit that certain number on the ACT, and that's a money number. That gets you a lot of good scholarships and stuff like that. We'd like for everybody to at least have a 21 by the time they graduate, and that way they're a ready graduate. But then, we have the kids that are scoring in the 30s and then the high 28 or high 20s, 28, 29, 27, something like that. So we're excited about it because we've got a lot of great kids coming through, and they're working really hard. But our teachers also, they're working hard. We have ACT prep classes, and they work extremely hard in those classes. They may teach English or science or whatever throughout the day, but then that second block, they're doing ACT prep. And they work extremely hard, just as hard in that ACT prep class as they do in their English classes and their math classes as far as prep and stuff like that. So we're really pushing the ACT here.
Gotcha. And then, last week, Principal Thomas talked to me about how it was the progress report week.
Yes.
What kind of goes into that?
Basically what that is it's about halfway through our 9 weeks. And of course, the kids are getting all their grades. We send the progress reports home with them, and that way the parents and the kids know, hey, this is halfway through the 9 weeks. This is what I have. If I have a B and I want an A, then I got to really get with it the next 4 weeks and do some good things. If a kid is struggling, that lets the student know, hey, I need to pick it up. It also lets the parents know, hey, this is what's happening. And that way there's no surprises at the end of the 9 weeks. Hey, I thought my student was doing really well, and I see that they're not, So we're just we're monitoring their progress, like it says, progress report. So we just want to keep the parents involved and the students. We want them to know exactly, what's going on. We have a thing in our school portal called Parent View, and the parents can get on there at any time. They just log in, and they can see what classes that they're doing bad in, see what assignments they've missed, if they've ever had any disciplinary actions, or if they've had to be in ISS or anything like that. So that keeps everybody involved, and that's it takes a village, to educate students this time, So the more we can have the parents involved and know what's going on, so they don't have any surprises, and we all communicate together. It just makes for a much better school environment and school culture.
Absolutely. And then you also serve as the AD.
Yes, sir.
So what's going on athletically this week?
Right now we've got our soccer team. They're going to be on the road for quite a few games. Our volleyball team is playing at home this week. They played yesterday, and they'll play, I believe it's today, and then they'll play Thursday. They don't have like 9 more games left, so that season is kind of winding down. We go on the road to Watertown for a big region football game on Friday night. Our cross country team, they've been competing and doing some really good things. So on that aspect, that's been a really good thing for us. So we have a lot going on. Our golf team is still out there doing really good. So the fall, we've got volleyball, football, cross country, girls soccer, golf. So it's a lot going on at the start of the school year. But the students and the coaches, they're dedicated, and they put in a lot of, it's hard enough to start the school year, but then when you're out 2 or 3 nights a week, coaching and going to ball games, and the kids are out, our student athletes do a really good job, and we're really proud of them.
Absolutely. And is there anything else you wanted to add?
We're just really excited about this school year. We've got a lot of great students. Our faculty is just top notch, and we're still working on our culture. We're still plowing and just doing just what we can do to make the best culture for the kids, provide them with a safe environment, safe learning environment. So we're just really excited about this school year.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
When it comes to insurance, Winterberg and Associates Insurance is the team you can trust. We offer coverage for your home, auto, business, and more. We work hard to find the best policy for you at the best price. Our personalized service means we take the time to understand your needs and make sure you understand your options. We want you to feel confident and secure with your insurance policy. Let us make insurance simple for you. Get a quote today at winterburinsurance.com or call us at 931-363-8638.
And we're back here on Beyond the Box Score. I'm Mark Mize. He's Chandler Harmon. Talking a little Richland football here as the Raiders come away with a 21-10 victory over 3A White House Heritage. You know, that White House Heritage team came in averaging 35 points a game. Really, you didn't know what to expect from that high-flying offense. But first off, I wanted to, you got a chance to see it in person start to finish. Of course, an extended start to finish with those long delays. Just how did you feel about the tempo of the game and especially that defensive performance by the Richland Raiders?
Overall, it was a great game. Richland scored early, and while they lost the lead a little bit, overall they held the game together. And White House, in the end, started weak, went into the delay, came back out swinging, and looked good at a little bit. And then Richland really pulled together defensively with 2 interceptions, one being a pick six, over 70-yard pick six at that too. So, overall a really good defensive showing by Richland. And honestly, with that win, I think the sky's the limit for the team.
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head there. Like, the catch was probably right around the red zone there where Tucker Mayo ends up in the final, I believe, 2 minutes getting the pick six. At the time it's 14-10. Richland's on top, but White House Heritage is driving there. Just, can you break down that play for us and what the environment was like after that play happened?
Yeah, absolutely. Going to the play, they almost had the sack, and so kind of a desperation throw from White House Heritage ends up getting picked off barely. The catcher for White House almost got it, but Richland snuck up under it. Mayo got it and just had great blockers all the way back, and absolutely electric field. With everyone in the stand just going wild over it. A great play, right as we're closing out the game to really ice the game because, Richland had the lead. If White House would have scored, we might be looking at, potential overtime or just, outright a game winner. So just seeing the team really put it together and play good closing minutes of the game, just phenomenal play by them.
And really, I think both of us coming into the season, if you had told me that Richland was only going to average, I think it's been about 22, 23 points a game early on, I would have been, a little questioning of how well they had done early on. Of course, they're 2-1 now in the season with 2 big victories over a 3A and a 4A team. I think that comes down to the defense. We thought it was going to be good, but I feel like it's been even better than expected.
Absolutely. Their one loss, was a game that could have gone either way. So, they're really clicking. I think they really found their way to go forward with the team. And I think that once the offense puts the last few pieces together, I think they're going to be a very hard team to beat for the rest of the season.
And then finally talking about defense, just, last week, one of my keys coming into the week was I think that the presence of the defensive line, how well they played and how much pressure they could get would be a big deciding factor. What'd you see from those guys?
Early on, a little bit of struggles, but as the game went on, they really found their footing. And, they were putting a lot of pressure on the quarterback, which led to the 2 big interceptions at the end of the game. I think that really going forward, if they can just keep building on what they're, seeming to achieve, and especially in this White House game against a much bigger school, I think that their defensive line will go really far.
And then turning to the offensive side, 2 more passing touchdowns from Gavin Schrader as he threw one to Tucker Mayo, by the way, on that 2-yard touchdown pass, then had another long strike to Landon Harbison there as well. And so it's interesting that in the first game, they really relied pretty heavily on the passing game. Then in game 2 versus Spring Hill, kind of the running backs were the ones that led the day. And then now they kind of went back to the passing game a little bit in this one too. How do you feel like that's progressed so far over the course of the season?
I've loved what I've seen from Schrader as far as developing with his reads and his pocket presence. The far passing play, the touchdown, I think it was about 35-ish yards, great move. He looked at his options. He saw a dude who was wide open, went for it. Overall, again, he 70% completion rate. I think that the passing game has really evolved. And rushing, they're getting the moves that they need to make. I think that in the end, I think they're going to take a more balanced offense. But both of their key plays there could really decide the game. Running, they could rush the ball 100 yards and win the game, or they can pass. And I think that having that dual threat offense is really going to be what helps them move forward.
I will note too, I think a lot of people out there don't realize that these are probably, it's so hard to say in a new season because I really can only go off what I saw last season. But I think these first three opponents were three of the top five defenses you're going to see all year. And so even though you're going to have like an Eagleville on the schedule as well, that's a little bit concerning, and maybe one more. Overall, I think it's only going to get a little bit easier from here on out in terms of the offense having more opportunities because you've played some really good teams with a lot of really talented personnel so far, and so I think that they've really really played well versus some deep and pretty large defensive units.
Absolutely, and like you said, the road seems a little easier from here with a few concerning games, but White House Heritage, as you talked about last week with Jennifer. That's a big testing point for them to see how far can they go as a team, because that's a much bigger school than them. And I think that we saw a lot of good things coming out of it.
Absolutely. I think White House Heritage may be the best team that was on the schedule, and you won that game. So from here on out, I don't know that there's a game that you don't feel like you might be the favorite in. So really big. When you talk about the biggest wins of Coach Patterson's tenure, I think about Fairview a couple years ago. They're a pretty good 3A team. I think about last year's win to clinch the region championship over Moore County, where they just came in at home and just locked them down. Maybe a couple others, but I think this is probably in your top 3 to 5 best victories for the Raiders under Patterson. So huge, huge week for them. And now they're going to get a chance to start out region play at Huntland. But before we talk about next week's game versus Huntland, let's hear from Coach Patterson, who Chandler had a chance to talk to after last week's game.
All right, so Coach Patterson, big win for the team tonight, against a higher classification school. What were some things you saw the team do really good?
Well, we just came out fired up and aggressive. It's a 3A school that was a quarterfinal team last year, and they put up big numbers so far this year. So, we knew we had our work cut out for us, but the kids prepared hard, and, it showed, in our performance. I think it was really big that we came out and jumped on them early before the lightning delay. I think that helped out. Of course, momentum shifted a little bit, right after, but, our kids are relentless, and they kept pounding and doing what they needed to do. So awful proud of them tonight.
Yes, sir. And then big defensive plays towards the end of the game. What do you think of the guys and the plays they made there?
Well, just like I said, relentless effort and not going to be denied. Big, huge play by Tucker, and there was a couple sacks and stuff in there. So just can't say enough about our defensive staff of coaches and those kids that are out there on that defensive side. We had to sub some kids in, and then they stepped up too. So just overall a great team night for us.
Yes, sir. And speaking of some people, there was a few injuries I saw. Are there any concerns kind of going into next week about any major injuries? Or?
We'll have to look and see. I'll talk to the trainer in a minute. And see, kind of regroup and see where we are. But, it's cliche, but we're a next man up, team, and we've built depth, and so we feel okay about that if that's where we got to go.
Next week's matchup, how do you feel the team is getting ready for that, and what do you think needs to be cleaned up before you go into that matchup?
We just got to keep getting better each and every day and each and every week as far as cleaning up penalties. We're still, we play some young kids, and it shows at times, and our efforts got to overcome that sometimes, but just try to play a little bit cleaner football, and stop the penalties. That's what we're about.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
And we're back after you got a chance there to hear from Coach Nick Patterson after last week's big victory over White House Heritage. Raiders 2-1 on the season, and they'll be traveling to 2-1 Huntland. Always a really great matchup between these two teams. I can think of some really physical, grounded out football kind of games they've had in years past. And that's more of what I expect from Huntland this year. They return starting quarterback Grant Jernigan. They have a new running back in Bryant Mooney, who I don't think I had seen last year, has already had a good early season. And I saw on the roster fullback Jed Ashley is back too. And so honestly, they're going to be a really physical team. They play good defense. It feels a lot like the kind of team we saw in the opener at Waynesboro.
Absolutely. That makes me a little worried just because, Wayne County really did well running the ball against the original defense. I hope that they've grown a little bit since then and can, fight a bit more with it. But Huntland's going to be a good matchup for them. And I think that, based off that, that's a region play game. That is a big decider, going forward because, starting region play 1-0 is a lot better than starting 0-1. So.
Definitely. And, there are only 6 teams in this region. So that means all but 2 of them will make the playoffs. But, of course, you get off on the bad start. I mean, this is a really deep region. I think Eagleville and Fayetteville City are going to be great this year. Those 2 in Richland, I think, are kind of the cream of the crop. But then you have teams like Cornersville, which has started out 3-0 after in the preseason. I'll be honest, I don't think either of us were that impressed when we got a chance to see them. But, they've really made some noise early on, even if it was a slightly inferior competition there. Moore County, they're probably going to be back and going to be coming back up this year. And so, overall, there's not really a team in this region that you think you can just walk over. So that's why every game is so important. And of course, playing on the road, especially what I guess is probably in terms of length of travel, your longest region road game of the year, that's important. And so it's all about Coach Patterson having his guys ready and being ready for a tough road environment.
Right, absolutely. We've seen a lot with Wayne County and some of the other teams, how you get ready and, what that road environment is like decides how you're going to play. It really comes down to, will Schrader be ready for another big road game? Will the offense click like it needs to? Or will the noise kind of, interfere with what they need to do?
Well, just looking at it initially, I think one of the keys to the game is the fact that I believe the Raiders will have an advantage in terms of the skill position players. And so I think Richland will probably want to throw the ball around a little bit. Of course, it's been important in the first few weeks of the season for them to establish the run and be a balanced offense as well. But I think that their biggest advantage is in the passing game. And just like last week, I really think that this front, 6 front 7 of the Raiders defense is one of the best units they've had in years. And so I really think that that's where the game's going to be won there. Just based on what you've seen from Richland this season, just what do you think are some of your keys for getting this first region victory?
I think first off, starting with a good passing game. Schrader's done some really good things, and I think this week will be another time that we see him really shine. If he can make some early connections, get some big plays, I think that will be a big decider. If they can get the running game going as well, play a balanced offense. It's hard to stop a team that has a good balanced offense because it seems like you can't really do anything to stop them. So if they can get established in both forms of play, I think that will be great for them. I think, like you said, defense. If the defense plays like it did against White House, it could be a very, very big and very easy win for them because White House is a big school.
Yeah.
If they can bring in that defense that was able to topple White House, it's going to be a very big, big part of what they do. And lastly, I think again, just what does that road environment look like? I think that's going to be a big decider. We see it in all levels of play. That home, the home crowd is the sixth man.
Yeah.
So. That's going to be the last decider. Is it enough to kind of give them some miscues, get some flags that, stop some important drives? Those are the big 3 things I think will really decide it.
One last interesting note is, if I'm not mistaken, Schrader has now thrown touchdown passes to 4 different players this year. I'm right, aren't I?
Yeah,
that it was
I think
Sands,
so.
Griggs, Mayo, and Harbison. So
That's correct,
really impressive that, they have that depth in the receiving core. We really saw that in 7-on-7s throughout the summer and kind of felt that was going to happen. And by the way, there's a couple guys like Aylin Kennedy who is going to get some touchdowns this year who hadn't even had a chance to yet. And so Richland really deep at the skill positions, a great play at the line so far. And at this point, after this win over White House Heritage, you really feel like the sky is the limit for the Raiders. So, Chandler, it'll be great. I'll actually get a chance to cover that game with Jennifer Hawkins. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe we will be broadcasting it for you on WKSR there, as well as we're going to be partnering with KSR some this fall. And so should be a great one. And hopefully the Raiders can start 1-0 in a region play. But we'll be back in just a moment here on Beyond the Box Score.
For over 50 years, PES Energize has been proudly powering our community in Pulaski and Giles County, Tennessee. We're more than just an electric utility. We also offer internet and phone services. Our commitment to our customers and our community is what sets us apart. We're dedicated to providing safe, reliable, and innovative services. At PES Energize, we believe that serving you is a privilege. We're here for all your energy needs. Visit PESenergize.com or call us today.
Welcome, Raider Nation. What if I throw out these names to you? Joe Jett, Pat Benatar, the Bengals. Well, if those names get you excited, then we've got a special treat for you. I'm joined today with a couple of our band members, and we're here to talk about their halftime show this year. Ladies of the 80s, right up my alley. So I'm going to share with you guys who we have, and then we got a couple questions that they can fill you in on so you can get a little experience of what their halftime show is going to be like this year. So I have with me our drum major for this year, Charles Randall, who is a junior here at Richland, and joining him is another junior, Megan Drock. And so, Charles, let's start with you. So, how long have you been in band and what all do you play?
I've been in band for about 7 years since fourth grade, and I've played alto sax, tenor saxophone, and soprano saxophone.
Nice. So a little bit of all the different saxophones and get that going. And so you've enjoyed your time in band, and now you're the drum major. So nice, nice. Congratulations on that. So tell me from the show, all these different songs that you guys are kind of putting together from the 80s, because this is before your time, obviously. Now, like I said, I might have been around a little bit during that time. But so tell me, what is your favorite one to direct in this show?
My favorite one to conduct is probably the ballad, which is the song What About Love, because of the different cues that I have to use for different parts coming in and holding.
Kind of keeps you on your toes and keeps you going. So nice. All right. Well, Megan, let's talk with you just for a second. And I want to ask you the same thing. How long have you been in band and what all do you play?
I've been in band about 5 years now, and I play the trumpet.
Play the trumpet. Okay. Nice. That takes a lot of talent and a lot of good air behind that to make that work. And so 5 years in the band. And tell me, which have been your favorite part of the show this year?
Well, I like the closer. I don't really remember the name of the song, but the beginning is where I come in is my favorite part. And yeah. Okay.
So you get to have a certain intro there and kind of throw your talent into it. So I want to encourage you all, get a chance, if you get a chance, come watch their halftime show because it's been a lot of fun. And if you would like to support the band, they have their annual fundraiser going on right now. It's through Little Caesars. So who doesn't love a good pizza? And when you're rushed at night and you need some help out, you can get in touch with a band member or Mr. Smith, who is our band director here at Richland, and they can hook you up with some great deals to help out and support the band, but also take care of your dinner at night. So we want to encourage you all, please come see their halftime show. It's been a lot of fun. There's some great kids. They put a lot of time and talent into their program, and we don't want you to miss it. So for All Things Richland, I'm Jennifer Hawkins.
Haney Realty and Property Management is the team you can trust. Our extensive knowledge of the market and industry allows us to help our clients with any real estate need. We know how to get results. So whether you're looking to buy, sell, or rent, let us put our expertise to work for you. Call us today at 931-347-9150 or visit HaneyRealtyPem.com to learn more. Haney Realty and Property Management, your best friend in real estate.
And we're back for one final segment here on Beyond the Box Score. And Dylan, it wouldn't have been right to get you out of here without letting us talk a little college football. It's the best time of the year. And, you know, with the fact that last week, for the first time in 14 years, you had one of my favorite rivalries, Missouri versus Kansas, played there in the border war. You know, some really great memories from that rivalry as, you know, Missouri ends up winning 42-31. I think that, you know, fans from both schools were really happy to see this one come back around. And of course, it's a rivalry that was disrupted due to Missouri leaving for the SEC in 2012. And so that was the last time they played, was the last year they were both Big 12 North conference mates. As a result, kind of got me thinking this week, Dylan, what are the 5 rivalries that have been disrupted due to conference realignment that you'd really like to see return? And so I gave you a little time to think about this, and I figured we just go back and forth naming a few rivalries. And you can think of some folks, for you folks out there, you can think of some of your favorite as well. We may not think of all the ones that you do, but feel free to comment any that you're like, hey, y'all didn't say this one, but this is one we really want to see return. So Dylan, I'll let you do the honors first.
Okay, starting at number 5, Nebraska, Colorado. Going back, the game I think of is that 2001 matchup with the future Heisman winner Eric Crouch when Nebraska was still running the option back when that was a thing. Mm-hmm. That feels like it was 50 years ago, not 25 years ago or so. And Colorado blew them out, knocked them out of what we thought initially championship contention, but ended up playing Miami in the Rose Bowl. But at one point when Colorado had a very solid run there, about 89 to 2001, it was a great rivalry.
Absolutely. I was actually listening to a podcast about Bill McCartney and the Colorado Buffalo. So that's interesting that you mentioned that one. Of course, that was one that got disrupted by Nebraska moving to the Big Ten, but Colorado actually moving to the Pac-12 for a short time until now they're back in the Big 12 once again. And so that always was a great one in the 90s. My number 5 is actually similar. It's Nebraska-Oklahoma, which is another really great 90s rivalry in the Big 12. Of course, before that, it was a Big 8 rivalry as well. And so that one just always felt like those were 2 of the top 10 teams in the nation for a while. Really hard-nosed football there in the Big 8 and then the Big 12. And that's one that it's not a trophy rivalry, but it's one that I just think was every fan of college football in the 90s. That's one of the ones you think about that always had real postseason implications.
Absolutely. Number 4, Apple Cup, Washington State. Now, of course, we could say these teams in non-conference, they control their non-conference scheduling, whether they have a 3-game non-conference schedule or 4. So Washington and Washington State could still play really whenever they want if it's open on their schedule. And I think they should. It's that in-state rivalry that we all enjoy, right? It's big brother, little brother, right? That we see in almost every state with 2 major college teams, usually with the state name, except for Ohio and Ohio State, but I haven't figured that one out yet. But Washington State, usually late at night. It still may be a little bit of a daylight on the West Coast, and it's already, of course, dark here where we are. But I've always found that interesting, the proximity of the teams, just seeing 2 teams that you normally wouldn't see otherwise unless you stay up late for Pac-12 ball.
Oh, yeah. I always loved watching that Mountain West or Pac-12 late night football, after all of the traditional games on the East Coast. And then the, Midwest, have already ended. There's some great memories from that. Oh, yeah. My number 4 is a little bit of a cheat because it is a rivalry that theoretically may happen every year now once again, but it was disrupted due to conference realignment, and that's the Holy War, BYU versus Utah. Oh, yeah. Now remember, now those teams have finally come back in the same conference. They were formerly Mountain West, and after moving around a little bit, now they're both in the Big 12. And so I always thought that was a great one. It's, the interstate rivalry there, there in the state of Utah. Some really, really good games, especially once Utah really started to take off in the Mountain West before they ended up getting the bid to the Pac-12. And so that one was really fun. And, BYU, a lot of younger fans probably don't remember just how good they were for a little while. Oh, yeah. And, right now they're kind of a fringe top 25 team, but there was a time where they were national title contenders. And some of the best games from the 80s and 90s involved BYU and some of their, award-winning and record-breaking quarterbacks.
Ty Detmer.
Yeah, that's the first one I was thinking of.
Absolutely. Yes, LaVell Edwards Stadium. There's a reason why his name is on that stadium. BYU has a very proud football tradition.
So number 3?
Number 3. Piggyback off of you a little bit here, Oklahoma, Nebraska for me as well. And again, you mentioned the 90s. Yes, just Big 8 rivals for, 50, maybe 60 years or so. You're out there on the Great Plains, Tornado Alley, that kind of thing. While they don't border each other, they're all right there in the same conference. And really for them, it wasn't so much the trophy, like you said. It was you're finishing 1 and 2 in your conference, in the Big 8 conference for so many years before they went to the Big 12 and got split into different divisions. Yep. They would still play as cross-divisional opponents. And when Nebraska went to the Big 10, I thought, oh my goodness, those fans that really eat up that kind of rivalry there with Oklahoma. They've only played a couple of times since as non-conference opponents, and for us that for all of us that enjoy the kind of old time college football, we miss some of that.
Yeah, I went with a similar one to one of your earlier ones, as you had mentioned. Obviously, Washington versus Washington State. I had Oregon versus Oregon State, which is another one of those Pac-12 rivalries that we've since lost. A lot of really good Pac-12 rivalries that we've lost.
Yes.
One of my honorable mentions, probably Stanford versus USC, which was a good one for a little while.
Yeah.
One of my favorite football games I can remember was Stanford upsetting USC when it was I think USC was a 35-point favorite in that game. Back when they were a national title contender.
Some guy named Harbaugh on the sideline.
Yeah. But Oregon versus Oregon State. I think a lot of people also forget that Oregon State had a really good run in the early 2000s, and so that was a really great rivalry, really fun matchup there. That once again was lost because, of course, Oregon State stuck around a little too long in the Pac-12, and then of course Oregon head over to the Big Ten, which geographically. Wow. Does that make sense?
Right.
But yeah, that was my number 3.
Number 2, and it's one kind of cheat a little bit here. It was gone for a while. They didn't like each other, but starting last year, they're back with conference expansion. They end up meeting again, and that's Texas A&M. I'm a fan of the state of Texas anyway, and so you put those two teams together. The burnt orange and the maroon can't stand each other. My oil driller will outdo yours. We're going to outdrill you. We're going to outbid you. We're going to outspend you. That's Texas and Texas A&M, and it's just so much fun. They've had so many great games, so many great characters in that rivalry through the years. I think of a Bear Bryant when he was at Texas A&M, Jackie Sherrill, people like that, and then of course on the Texas side with Mac Brown, of course, all those years. And at the moment, I'm drawing a blank on the great Texas coach, Daryl K. Royal, and what he was able to build at Texas. Just a fun rivalry, and I'm so glad that in the SEC of all places, it's back.
And it's funny that we're having some of those Big 12 rivalries come back in the SEC, where you have Missouri-Oklahoma, which is a pretty good sub-rivalry as well there. And then, of course, Texas A&M, which, is a fantastic one. I wonder if out of conference, you potentially get a chance to see them play someone like Texas Tech now that the Big 12 seems a little more likely to schedule a few of those non-conference games versus some of those teams that had scorned them by leaving or back in 2011 and then more recently a couple years ago with Oklahoma, Texas. So those are some of the ones I'd really like to see come back. My number 2 is an odd one. It's the backyard brawl, Pittsburgh versus West Virginia.
Oh, yes.
And this is my reasoning. One of my favorite memories in college football was the 2007 season, when basically the last week of the season, all hell broke loose.
It did.
And you had number 2 versus number 3 playing for a chance at going to the national title pending, of course, conference championship week. And it was Armageddon, Missouri versus Kansas. Number 2, Kansas ends up losing, so Missouri moves to number 1 for a week. But who's number 2 behind Missouri and looking like it might be Missouri versus them in the national championship? It's West Virginia with Pat White and Steve Slayton.
Oh, how much fun was that?
And so, that team for West Virginia was so much fun. You think about some of the early Pittsburgh teams. This isn't quite contemporary because this is about 5 years earlier. But when you had, of course, guys like Larry Fitzgerald up there, which was the first wide receiver that in my time watching college football, I could imagine, this guy might win the Heisman. Of course, he didn't. But I think he really paved the way for a couple guys since then who were wide receivers to win it. And so the backyard brawl was so much fun. That year, Pittsburgh upset West Virginia to knock them out of the national championship game.
Oh, yeah.
And Oklahoma upset Missouri in the Big 12 championship to knock them out as well. So your number 1 and your number 2 team fell in what is traditionally considered conference championship week there to set up a completely different championship game. But always remember the year that the backyard brawl and Armageddon both actually had national championship implications, something you really could never have said before.
Mark, and I remember that because LSU got to back their way to number 2 and won with Les Miles on the sidelines their first national championship. I think it was in about a 5-year span since Saban was there.
They beat Ohio State that year?
They did. Yep. They blew them out down there in the Superdome, which is pretty much a home game for them. But remember that very well. Pittsburgh and West Virginia just had to mess it up.
So number 1.
Number 1, a little biased here, within conference. Because conferences are getting so much larger, you can't play every rival every year the way it's set up. The SEC is talking of going to 3 constants, depending on past rivalries, who's close to whom, that kind of situation. But I think of my own Tennessee Vols here in that regard. It's been a long time, and part of this even goes back to the 1992 East-West division split with the SEC. Tennessee used to play Auburn and Ole Miss every year. It was unquestioned. They never rotated off. Those were good rivalries. With the split in the East-West, those games go away, and you only see an Auburn or an Ole Miss every maybe 6, maybe even 8 years. The SEC now says we want to get everybody a home and home with each team in conference within a 4-year span, which is great. So I do miss those. Starting your season out with Auburn every year, and here comes Bo Jackson. How's Tennessee going to respond? Playing Ole Miss to start November off, and they might play it in Memphis at the Liberty Bowl, which is a good little trip for both teams' fan bases. And so I miss those.
And I'll tell you, too, that's one thing that I like about the new system where you should play everyone within 4 years, because formerly it could be up to 14 years before you would play at a certain stadium. And, for a lot of folks in Giles County, you'd be surprised how many people have on their bucket list that they want to go see their favorite team play in every SEC stadium.
Yeah.
And when you're having to wait up to 14 years potentially in order to see a road game if the home game happens first, I mean, that just makes it untenable. So the 9-game schedule, the 3 constants, and getting to see everyone through a rotation a little bit quicker, I think is a really great move by the SEC. My number 1 is a shout out to Jennifer Hawkins. It's Bedlam, Oklahoma versus Oklahoma State. That's just such a fantastic rivalry there, especially now that Oklahoma State has had a pretty good run in the last 10 to 15 years in which they've caught up a little bit to big brother Oklahoma. But you just think about all the names from that rivalry. It is funny how many Oklahoma rivalries we've been talking about today. Yeah. But, Bedlam, I think, is really special. I think it's one you have to play. And as you mentioned a minute ago, Dylan, just because you don't play in conference play, you have up to 3, in some conferences, 4 non-conference games. There's no reason you can't schedule these games. And I think these administrators need to do what's right and get these games back on the schedule.
I second it. Absolutely.
So one final note, we got Dylan, probably the head VFL in this county, and there's no way I was going to let you get away without talking about Tennessee gets College Game Day, Georgia at Tennessee this week. What a way to start out the SEC schedule for you guys, at least. Of course, a couple SEC teams have already played, mentioning obviously Ole Miss versus Kentucky last week. Just what do you think about this game, and what do you think about the environment you're going to see in Knoxville?
Yeah, this is the first time we will. He's
Tennessee, a part of the team.
Of course, I like to think so. We all do. That Tennessee is opening the SEC season with Georgia, our SEC opener, for the first time since Peyton Manning was a sophomore in 1995. Georgia came to Neyland. After that, Georgia-Florida flipped, and we always open with Florida. So it's kind of interesting to have Georgia, who's been at the end of the season the past few times, right before Vanderbilt. Now we're getting them at the beginning. What's the SEC office in Birmingham doing? But it's a unique opportunity. Georgia being number 6, we're up to number 15. It's hard to believe. Where we started at 24, we didn't know what to expect with this Appy State quarterback named Joey Aguilar, who comes to us by way of UCLA, and a little trade of sorts with some guy named Nico. But who would have thought that this is where we'd be? I'm excited about it. It's a good atmosphere. Going on the road in the SEC, you'll hear Kirby Smart say it. You'll hear Josh Heupel for Tennessee say it. That regardless where you go, the stadiums are going to be loud. It's intense, strong fan following. It's going to be difficult. Now, Georgia in the past two games in Neyland Stadium, Tennessee has scored early and fast, and that's it. Georgia shuts it down. Georgia has, pardon the expression, Georgia has the dogs to get it done. And Tennessee has been somewhat rebuilding defensively. Tennessee is in a position where I want to be careful when I say this. They're almost equal as far as the talent pool, what they're able to pull. Joey Aguilar looks comfortable. That's what I've been telling people. That's what I've been hearing. And he does. We're going fast again with Nico. And then the year before that with Joe Milton. We were going slower. We're huddling up more. That's not a Josh Heupel offense. And that makes me feel good. Now, Joey's not going to be your 70%er. He's going to be more of a 60%er, which it used to be. That was good as a quarterback. Yeah. If you could hit 60%, 6 out of 10. And so I'm interested to see how Joey responds in his first SEC game. The talent's going to be bigger. This is not a Syracuse, which is not a bad team. or certainly in ETSU. This is the best so far. Both teams for each other are going to be their best test up to this point. I think Tennessee has a good opportunity, but there's a part of me in the back of my mind that says, until I see it, I think I may have to pick Georgia just because it has been a while. Our last win over Georgia, Athens, the Dobbs nail boot play. Hail Mary there. That was 2016. So Tennessee's ready. I think we're in a good position that we could knock Georgia off. Is it going to happen? I don't have enough evidence to convince me at the moment. I'd like to think so, though.
I will say one last question, being a Tennessee fan. Do you feel any measure of catharsis seeing Nico and UCLA struggle the way they have?
I don't wish any ill will on a player that is trying to elevate their career, that kind of thing. You and I, of course, have spoken about the transfer portal, NIL, and how we feel frustrated by that and the things that really need to be honed in and more controlled, I think. But I think for Nico, and I think I speak for a lot of all fans that might say, yeah, karma, look at you. You complained about how you didn't have an offensive line at Tennessee. How's your offensive line at UCLA? It's been tough for them, and UCLA is in a tough position. I have no ill will for UCLA. But I think for Nico, I think people will look back on Nico's situation and go, we got to do better about our demands, about who's telling us, hey, negotiate this, negotiate that. I think we got to be careful. So, and I think, of course, for Nico, it is a learning experience. He's still a very talented quarterback. He's just, I think he's way down there looking up, Mark.
Well, thank you very much, Dylan. It was great to have you. I'll be honest, I thought for your number one pick for the games we had lost to conference realignment, I thought you were going to go Swanee versus Vanderbilt, but I guess you didn't go quite that far back.
Hey, Battle of the Middle Tennessee Brains.
All right. Well, hey, this is once again Beyond the Box Score. Thank you so much to everyone who made this week's broadcast possible, to our guests, Dylan Manus and Jennifer Hawkins as well, who you saw in the Richland segment. And then also, of course, to our producers, Chandler Harmon and Scott Stewart. Chandler, who, of course, is also our co-host on the program. So a lot of great football coming on Friday night and over the weekend as well. Friday night, it's the first region game for both Giles County and Richland as the Raiders head to Huntland and Giles County travels to Watertown. But we'll have all the coverage for you, whether it be our stories, social media posts, box scores, and photography here with the Pulaski Citizen. And also, remember, you can catch these games listening and watching on WKSR as well. So thanks again for tuning in to Beyond the Box Score. Have a great week and watch some good football.